What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back at you today with more Danmachi. Now, today's going to be a really quick one. We're going to talk about the incoming Sword Oratoria banner. Now, this is really just to commemorate the Sword Oratoria stories dropping. We're going to get episodes 1 through 4 dropping in the game, and they're going to do a lot to promote this. We got these new, the new Loki and the new Bet units, so that's pretty hype. Let's talk about what they do. So, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I think with these videos, I like to go into a little bit more depth as to what they do and how they work. So here's Bet. Now, I really love Bet's stats. 3923 HP. I love that. We're getting closer to that 4K HP mark, and that's really the mark that I think is going to be really good for these units. Plus, it does show you they're bringing back physical. And we'll talk about more about that when Loki drops, but they're really bringing back physical, and they're going to introduce physical back into war games with these two units. Now, maybe not to the extent that Lead did, but, you know, Magic still kind of, I won't say dominates, it's kind of a balance. Like, you could run either one, honestly. But they did favor physical for a really long time. The Magic was really good for the last 6 months. And it looks like they're starting to introduce more physical back into it. Argue with me in the comments section. I've been using Magic teams for a while and doing okay. But then again, I'm not Hero 2 class by any stretch of imagination. So, the hell do I know? My War Games builds tend to not be so hot. So, if you look forward to fighting us in a War Game, aim for me. I have an easy kill, apparently. Neither here nor there. Triple S stats for physical is really good. I love seeing that. That's really awesome. MP leaves a little bit to be desired, but his MP cost isn't too high. And remember, that like will double and so on when you start really feeding CP levels into him. So very good there. Just between 1,000 and 1,100 on agility is really nice. Dex and endurance are really good. So those stats are fantastic. Just really, really, really good stats. And defense is even really respectable at 658. So some very, very, very good unit. Very well-rounded unit stat-wise. Now, how does this unit work? Well, let's get down to it. Skill 1, which, remember I said the MP isn't really too bad. It's a 24 MP cost. Self. Slow. Water attack damage plus 90% for 4 turns. Now, the fact that that's a slow skill basically means he's going to wait for all the debuffs to be done in the game, and then he's just going to... Yeah, now I got my water buff, Chief. How you doing? The downside is because that is... his agility is so high, I really feel like there are units that could still negate this, but it isn't the end of the world, and the fact that he's not trying to rush that buff is kind of nice. Now, that does mean you have to survive till turn 2 to make this happen, so you need to be fairly defensive when you do a unit like this. But after that water buff, he's going to get 4 turns, 3 additional actions with foe low water physical attack. So basically for the next 4 turns, turns 2 through 5, he's going to be hitting twice, which is really nice. I love that new mechanic. It's really awesome. The one thing you'll notice here, he's lacking a physical buff. You probably are going to want to put a physical buff on him. For Wargame, it's probably not the end of the world, but he is going to be lacking that, so do heavily consider that. I'd really have to see how he works to really see how that's going to affect him ultimately. Now, skill 2 is pretty awesome. A fast. Remember, skill 1 was a slow, so he gets that buff, and then skill 2 is going to come out of the gate with like this really fast attack. 43 MP cost in this. Foes plural, so all foes. Fast mid-water physical attack with 50% slow, so he's got an ailment on top of it. And allies debuff -3 turns. So he really takes the wind out of your opponent's sails. Now, if he happens to be up against a Bet that's rebuffing, obviously that's not going to do much good. And I'm going to reassess something here. I noticed I messed it up on skill 1. Skill 1 is a 4 turn for the water buff and 3 additional action. So in other words, not turns 1 through 5, it turns 1 through 4. My apologies, I read that kind of backwards. So his water buff, it's 4 turns, and its additional actions are then 3 turns. Now, here's what's interesting about this. This is that point at which you really do want to win the race. Because if you're Bet versus Bet, then basically you want your agility high enough that on turn 2 you go in and you knock him down. Now, the really interesting part about this, you're not going to take that Bet completely out unless you hit him with somebody else that debuffs by 3 turns. So he doesn't negate himself. You will still get hit. It will just mean that on turn 3 they've got to rebuff. So really interesting how this unit works. He doesn't completely nullify your opponent's unit. Your opponent still does like major damage on turn 2, but your goal is to win the race. So then come turn 3, if there is a turn 3, then you can finally come in and do a little work there. I've really got to see how this guy works in Wargame. After he drops, we'll probably test him a little bit tonight and see what happens. But I feel like this is going to be a really good Wargame unit. And the last few units I've said that about turned out 3 or 4 games later to pretty much become the hero meta. So do consider that if you are a Wargame main. I'm going to be personally honest, I might skip this because he is not time limited. If you look up there at the top, it's not time limited. And my water teams are kind of okay, not amazing. So I just don't know. I've got to make some final decisions here. Remember, we've got collabs, we've got anniversaries, we've got things incoming, and it's really time to like buckle down and start thinking about what you want to do, because you want to have minimum 8,000 Irish for the new collab, and we also have a rerun that's most likely happening before then. I predict it's going to be Attack on Titan. I think Titan is such a great series right now. And I've been watching, I've been catching up in it, and it's so different and amazing and so hype that I just can't see Danmachi not capitalizing on that come the end of the series. Like, the end of the series, people are just going to be dying for more. And so if Danmachi really has their stuff together, they will capitalize on that and do the rerun. Bring new players to the game and all that stuff right before we get the new the new collab, which you guys have told me to watch it. I've been watching the time I got reincarnated as a slime, and holy crap, I love this series so much. So I'm really hoping, there's no reason to assume it, but I'm really hoping that's the collab, because how great would that fit with this universe? The humor level's perfect. Ugh. Anyway, we've talked ad nauseum about that. Skill 3 with bet. Let's get back into it. I digress. Skill 3 is a 31 MP cost, foe singular, super water physical attack with high on guard rate, and temporary strength boost. So, no boosts there, no like percentage gains or anything like that. And as I say, foes plural, ultra water physical attack with high critical rate, and physical resist down 50% with 3 turns slow. Now, I want to talk about slow versus agility debuffs for a moment. So, I love that physical resistance down 50%. That's going to be good for a lot of events coming up. I really feel like, though, his single target is so lacking, you're never going to use it. I really feel like he's a skill 1, skill 2, and SA, that's it. You're never going to use skill 3 in any realistic situation expecting good damage out of it. It needs a percentage boost. It really, really does. Now, that said, so slow is an ailment. Whenever you consider slowing units in Wargame, there's 2 ways to do it. There's debuffing agility, which is really important, and especially if you're going to go in here using bet, you want to debuff your opponent's agility. Slow is also an ailment, so if they're running anti-ailment, they're not going to get slowed, or if you don't get the percentage right or whatever, they're not going to get slowed, because it's only 50%. So basically, like, flip a coin. Heads you win, tails I lose. That's whatever it is. So, yes, I said that on purpose. So, big question mark there, because it is ailment. Fire resistance is up 35%, counters water physical attack damage 80%, and if enemies, counters are water attack and 80% damage if enemy is slowed. So those counters are going to be super, super, super important in Wargame. Super important in Wargame. It's going to be crazy good in Wargame. Agility and endurance plus 25%, strength and dex plus 30%, guard rate reduction 30%. I'm second guessing myself. Now, we do know the paid banner. You can actually hit the paid banner 3 times. So it is possible you could get this unit to like +2 without, maybe even +3 or 4 if you're really super lucky, without ever having to drop your free-to-play Iris. So if you're a whale, consider that before you drop your free Iris. Personally, my opinion. Now, if you're going to go after him, though, you really got to go after Loki, too. Because Loki does so much to bring physical back into the game, personally, my opinion. And in fact, Loki probably is, I won't say mandatory, but really good for the physical meta. So if you don't have the Artemis assist, Loki's great, but she's only a self buff. But let's talk about her. Okay, so HP's not quite 1,000, which I would really love to have north of 1,000. But with all the other stats, I can't imagine that she's really needs it, to be honest. 618 for physical is great. MP is 179. That's great. Agility and Dex are both A stats. Could be better, but that's okay. No, sorry. Endurance and Dex are A stats. Agility is an S stat, not a double S. Just shy of a double S. But you can get all those up to S stats and agility with a double S stat with some appropriate CP leveling. So she has really good potential. Now, what does she do? Now, it's worth noting she is a self-buff, and that means all the buffs just apply to her, not to your allies. So she gives whoever she's tied to, let's say for the sake of argument you put her on Bet, strength plus 20%, agility and dex plus 20% again. Remember I said winning the race with Bet is going to be really important if you're head-to-head with the two of them. And foes plural, 90% slow. Now, once again, this is an ailment. How this works is it's applied whenever she comes in a battle. So at the beginning of battle, she's going to come out of the gate with an ailment attack. And that's going to happen before Bet does his attack. Because remember, his attack actually happens on turn 2. So what you're doing more or less is you're giving Bet more ability to perform his slow by hitting them with more ailment in turn 1. And hopefully then by turn 2, their anti-ailment is gone. And then you can slow them down and just really take them out. That's where I think Bet is going to be super dangerous. If you have 2 or 3 ailment assists on turn 1, or like, let's say, throw a poison unit on the front. Like a poison sack or somebody like that you know is just going to get taken out. You don't really care. But that way, turn 2, Bet's going to hit him with the slow and with that big attack and with the secondary attack and with the counters and all that. He's going to be super, 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 super dangerous. Especially if you have somebody on there that's going to buff his physical. Just plan accordingly. That's why I say Loki's going to be really super important if you have Bet. So you really, if you're going to go after one, you got to go after both. My opinion. Now, because she is self, that really starts to take her back a little bit. As much as I love this stat, I do have to admit the old Artemis unit is 20% self and 15% everybody else, but she doesn't do agility and dex or the slow ailments. So I really like Loki. I'm going to say if you're going to go after Bet for Wargame, go after Loki too. But bear in mind, we have a lot coming up. So if you're not super hard, you know, if for whatever reason, and let's talk about Wargame real quick, because if you are going after that, remember, Jester's only 10 Iris more per level. If you're going after that, you better go after Hero 3. Don't go after Jester ranks. Go after Hero 3. Have a really, really, really phenomenal team. So if you're just going, I'm going to get to Jester 3, it ain't worth. If you're going, I'm going to get to Jester 1, it ain't worth. If you're going, I can get to Hero 3 like this, then it might be worth, because we've got quite a few war games between now and then. But that, you've got to consider. That's the video. I'm going to say, most people, save. You don't need it. Getting a King 1 rank, more than enough. If you're having problems with it, join the Discord. We can help you build a team to get you to the King 1 rank. And, of course, we're going to be doing some Familia applications and stuff like that tonight live on stream. So I hope to see y'all then, 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. Like, comment, share. I'll catch you all on the next one.